welcome to another episode of the Quest for Excellence series. In today's episode, we are going to feature an interaction with one of the highly successful business heads of super specialty business in the pharmaceutical industry. Meet Sanjit Roy Chowdhary, who is the Vice President for Super Specialty Care for Zydus Cadila, based out of Ahmedabad. Sanjit is a pharmacy graduate from Maharashtra and has done his MBA from the Institute of Management, Pune, and has had over 27 years of rich pharmaceutical industry experience. Sanjit started his career as a medical rep with the GlaxoSmithKline Allenbury's division way back in 1995 and spent almost 5 years in the sales function as a medical rep promoting the various brands of GSK to the physicians. Subsequently, after a 5 years rich sales stint, Sanjit moved into product management function for the first time when he joined Sun Pharmaceutical Industries as a product manager, and spent the next decade with Sun Pharma, having a vertical growth in the brand management function as a brand manager, group brand manager, and so on till the head of marketing. After a sizable 10 years stint in marketing with Sun, Sanjit decided to pursue his future growth with Zydus Cadila as the general manager for marketing in the super specialty business. Sanjit is currently employed for the last 10 years building the super specialty businesses of hepatology, gastroenterology, rheumatology, orthopedics, and gynecology. He is a part of the senior leadership team for Zydus Biologics based out of Ahmedabad. Sanjit has an extraordinary experience in launching super premium and super specialty products in each of the franchise areas that I just mentioned. One of his biggest successes till date has been the launch of the first NCE from Zydus for the management of both diabetes and dyslipidemia through the molecule of saraglitazar, whose brand name is Lipaglyn. Many of you would know that Lipaglyn is the brand of saraglitazar, an NCE, which is used in the management of both NASH and NAFLD, that is alcoholic hepatitis and fatty liver. Now, the product has had a series of interesting developments all along its preclinical, clinical, and up to the stage of commercialization. Today, we will hear firsthand from Sanjit about this fun ride of realizing the dreams and aspirations of Lipaglyn in the market. Sanjit heads the entire business of super specialty verticals and is the VP and cluster head for sales and marketing. It is a great pleasure to have him on our series because I believe that many of the marketeers in our industry who would be actively engaged in super specialty businesses can learn some of the key aspects of marketing when it comes to super specialty expensive products. And so I believe that this interaction would be pretty useful in terms of their learnings. So let's move on and have an interaction with Sanjit. Hi, Sanjit. Good afternoon.
Hi.
So, with your kind permission, I think I would, kick off our interaction today. And when I see your profile, I think it's a classic, perfect profile, which of our generation. Where you spend considerable amount of time in the initial phase of your life, career, 5 years, in the sales function, which is obviously the first thing to do is to how to sell a brand, understand the dynamics of selling. And you did that not just for 1 or 2 years, you did it for almost 5 years with one of very respected multinational organizations like GSK in the Allenberry's division, and it was a very powerful business that you were engaged in. So today, my question to you, Sanjit, is A, was it a conscious choice that you will spend so much time to understand the nuances of selling? And second, today when you look back as a really successful VP cluster head, what do you think were some of the learnings and how did it really help you shape your whole orientation to strategic marketing? And what's your take? I mean, and also messages to marketers about getting that stint in selling. I would very, very keen to know about these couple of issues, Sanjit. Yeah.
So, Shailesh, when it comes to the operational part and when it comes to the sales part, Glaxo in 90s and 80s, which actually teaches you the basic fundamentals in operation and in sales. What's a ground reality and then very much disciplined organization in terms of the processes, culture, and the monitoring process, which was known as the most stringent monitoring process during that time. And that certainly helps in terms of understanding the prospects of those assignments or strategies or the outcomes of the business, the way we was to work. So it was a very conscious decision to get into the sales part to understand the nitty-gritty. But nevertheless, we all know that we all fall in this type of profession by accident. It was not by design. So I never, before I joined Glaxo, I was never knowing that there's something as medical rep is also there because father was from defense. So okay, fine. So some of my friends told, college friends told, Sanjit, there's an opportunity. Why don't you try? And that's how I landed up in this profession. But it was not planned, not thoughtfully worked. But yes, once landed into this role, put it their shoes, tied it up, and proceeded. And that's how the journey started with the Glaxo at Raipur headquarters. And that time it was a more of a specialty business known as the Allenberry's for the respiratory team. So the whole concept and that starting was that to build up the concept of usage of inhalers so how because asthma is a disease which a patient find it difficult to aspire and perspire. So how does inhale and exhalation happens and what is the process involved and how do you educate once to increase the usage of the inhaler and time by time also educate the patient that what is the relevance uh, of the inhalation and why patient more of inhalation it will help the patients for a longer um, patient relief, I should say. So that was the whole strategy behind that, and it helped to understand the perspective from the company's perspective, from doctor's perspective, and the patient perspective. And when you put together all the three on board, yes, I today, if you ask me, those experience helps me to today to look forward from all the three angles, from the doctor's point of view, from the people's point of view, the people who are discussing the patient's point of view, and as well as the company's point of view. So it was a win-win situation understanding, and subsequently it became an SKA peers, and then it became the middle share got attached with the Glaxo, and that's how the Alpha D3 and entire infertility range came across. Again, the patients came into the on board to discuss. So the whole perspective was the learning was those 5 years was that it gave an exposure and understanding and learning about towards the customer, towards the patient, towards the people, and that was a time of not a digital age. Even for that time, doing a sales closing, you have to see sit at the telephone booth with a fax who has a fax facility, and there you have to fax those at the late night those orders depending on those who used to visit. So there's a different experience, a ground raw experience, I should say, and today which helps to understand. But yes, ground reality has changed a lot. It has progressed a lot. It has become much more faster. What we have done in 25 years back. But those learnings has helped to take forward a strategy. But yes, after 4 years after investing on sales, There was a flair towards the why not to get into the marketing, more in more of designing part and get into the executing part, and more in execution level. Why can't this be the part of that? And since the fundamentals and the basics became stronger in the Glaxo, and that's how I landed up, and I applied for many of the companies. But the first thing, which the criteria I got, I was not been considered for in the PMT because I don't have a marketing experience. So since I don't have, so I thought, so everywhere I was able to crack those interviews, but at the end of the day, I was not being considered because I don't carry those experiences. So Sun Pharma, that time the Milmet was a division, one of the subsidiary of Sun Pharma. It was just taken over, a very small company, not because the 15 crore turnover. 90% of the people do not know what is Milmet and ophthalmology business is. So I took a risk. Everybody told, including all my hierarchies from my area manager, regional manager, zonal manager, Sanjit बहुत बड़ा risk ले रहा है. कहाँ number one company and कहाँ Sun Pharma, those never exist. And that also is one subsidiary. You do not know, just 15 crore का business annually. To pan India. So I thought, let me take risk, and I jumped into I took that risk. I got an opportunity, but fortunately, I was mentored by good seniors, late Mr. Udayan Das Gupta, who was the general manager at that time. He took, along with that, Mr. Lokesh Sibal, along with Mr. Shamal Ghosh. So these were the good mentors I got in that passage, and as a result, that experience about the ground reality of Dr. Glaxo. I was empowered. I gave a lot of, I involved also. I contributed, and I was very much accelerated in terms of how to build the business and the portfolio. See, in those 5 years, I launched somewhere between 54 products.
Wow.
54 ophthalmology product, launched a new division. It was one division, and in 15 and those 5 years, it became 15 crore to 100 crore.
Wow.
So that's a leap. And that time, the Milmet was just a small company, which was 14th or 15th in ophthalmology business, which became the third ranking in just 5 years. And when I was shifted for a different role, so this division, ophthalmology, because Allergan was the number one, and Sun was number two. Okay. By 2000, by 2000, by 2000. It was a dot 2000 when it began. So in 5 years, that's 2005. Sorry. So that's how it helped and that's where. So I will tell that why I was successful. Yes, I got a good mentor. Number one. Number two, I got a lot of empowerment and space to experiment myself, to evaluate. And number three, why I also got a team who was much cohesive in nature. They were not well at the market level, but the will to do was there. Skill was less, but will was very high. The will was high. So as a result, it was a win-win situation for all of us. Now, what also helped, like Glaxo that time was known for us as all premium gifts in 90s. So best of the gifts used to come for the doctors for that. So it was same thing was got replicated when I was got into the marketing. Yes, the best of the gifts should come across to the ophthalmologist, to the ophthalmologist, and as a result, the brand equity, your identity. So what was I? Because there's nothing new which we were coming across. But yes, we were the fastest to any new molecule we were coming across. How I used to create, we used to create an identity. Was that's something unique. That was a strategy needed to create your identity at the doctor's cabin, which we were not. So that helped us. Some of the newer molecules we came across, which were first time in India, as the last thing, ketorolac. Ketorolac was a ketotidine fumarate, then a sodium hyaluronate eye drop, like cyclosporin eye drop. So these were some of the new which were available globally, not India, but we were the first to come down to Indian market, and that's how we started making an identity and created a market amongst the doctors, mind and ophthalmology, because eye is a very sensitive organ. If smallest change, any irritation is there, they shout, they complain, and they go to the doctor, and doctor becomes very sensitive if my patient eyes are getting inflamed with your eye drop, I'll stop using your product. So both formulation was also good. So overall, it helped us to build up the business in a much more stronger way, expand the market, bring the size, increase the market share, became the number one. So it was more of a strategic point that balancing a same Sanjit can with one portfolio product is going, and if he has three anti-infective, how to do a placement of those? Which one is for the upper the cornea part, and which is for the retina part, which is for the subcutaneous part. So that differentiation of those science based along with the indication specific and the outcome based,
Right.
those demarcation was done. As a result, doc, in spite of us having all the anti-inflammatory drug or all the antibiotic drug, we were able to segregate, and that actually helped us to build a differentiating point from there. So learning of operational from Glaxo certainly has helped a lot in terms of getting that into market. So ground reality matters a lot, and I've been fortunate in Glaxo in terms of that not only in anti-inflammatory like ceforaxime is the Keftam, that was the brand which was with an originator, that was that Photum for the burn cases. So
Right.
alpha D3 for the osteoporosis, and then protein alpha to Fetugard, all for anti-inflammatory, anti-fertility. So these were the various, and like Me Too brands like Betnesol.
Right.
So it was a mix and match of everything which helped those 5 years for me to learn, understand, and retain and influence. So that those 5 years, I should say, was a worth investing. I should say. If you ask me why do I spend, your question was, I think I have invested those 5 years on me to have a solid foundation for the ground reality understanding.
Great. I mean, that is really interesting. Um, and this is something which I find interesting, Sanjit, because when I've interacted with other business leaders like you, the 2 points that they have attributed as success factors, which you have so very well mentioned, one is the presence of good mentors in their early part of their career, as you mentioned, which is very important. Because when you are in the early stages of your career, a presence of a mentor can really shape very well, right? And that is something which sometimes may go missing for today's youngsters, and therefore the youngsters need to look for good mentors. It's not that a mentor has to seek out the person, but even the person can seek out a good mentor. And I think the second thing that you mentioned, because GSK was number one multinational, I guess it was an extremely strong process driven organization, as I was also a part of the industry. So processes get built into you, structured way of doing things, structured way of operating the business. So when you have a good exposure to structured way of doing operations plus mentoring, I think you would agree, which helps you to shape your career faster and better and accelerate it. I think you have mentioned it very beautifully, and that I think helped you to succeed in Sun Milmet also, and to do. So did you spend 10 years, a decade?
One more thing which
Please.
I missed in this operation, I think one thing which we normally forget in today's area, it is very much relevant. When we got inducted as a medical rep, our training was there for 3 months.
Right. 3 months. 90. Wow.
1995, 3 months. Mr. Vivek Padgaonkar, I think we all know.
Yeah.
Mr. Sanjit Roy Chowdhary. So you name the stalwarts, all those were they used to invest on us, and 3 months is a big time.
Big time, yes.
It's a big time investments on our people, and I think that I remember those of, if those people who have stayed back, we were a batch of 90 people, and 45 three batches were there, we were running, and I do recollect out of those 90 people we were trained, and in fact I got selected in the month of September, but my training batch started from somewhere in the November. So I was told, no, you have to join on the November, but it's not that you go to the field 1 month, you do the survey. No. Since I was from the college, just passed out, so you first complete your training. So I see that those fundamental small, that time ek mahina aur kar lete. But today when I see, observe all those things, okay, there is a merit on what they bring on the table. And the training program was so well carved. So it's not only talk about the medical part, it also talks about your finance management, It also talks about your administrative management. It also talks about your customer behavior management. So that investment, see, it's not about purely science, then you do ratta maro, then so you vomit karo, then detailing karo. It's not about only beyond that. So all those perspectives were properly been narrated, taken care, and then told that if you, since you should have two salary, two accounts, one for salary, other for the expense, but those account क्यों? Those beds. But there was a logic behind that. And today when I see that, okay, why those was told. Today when I say to the chartered accountant, okay, fine, you have maintained the different parts. So those some we followed that. That's number one. Number two, I also give a credit to that training system is that of those 90 people we trained, I think 60 people stayed after 1 year.
Okay.
30 people offshooted, some due to the were not able to cope up those disciplines.
Right.
Some were found that okay, too much of checks and controls measures are there. So, and the people who left are more often have an industry experience.
Right.
More than 2 years, 3 years, more than 2 years, 3 years experience, they actually quit it. But the fresh guys all stayed back and fine. That was also one different learning which I found that why training is very vital.
Right.
A residential training meeting for 3 months, and that was also for 3 months. Today, hardly today organization don't invest so high in terms of in training up fresh colleague people for 3 months. But yes,
Right.
that's a real investment the organization has done that time.
Right.
To ask to so that we can reproduce in the for the future.
Correct. Right. No, that's interesting. 3 months today is definitely a luxury, and no organization really invests.
True.
You spent 10 years building the Sun business, and you were obviously became seasoned because one is you became successful in expanding the business from 15 to 100 crores in just 6 years. You also had a vertical growth in the company, becoming a marketing head, which was obviously a great thing because that was a classic vertical progression. What were your learnings about? Of course, you did mention about one is empowerment, taking decisions, bringing new products for the first time to India from the global portfolio, from the what was available globally but not in India. Apart from that, were there any classic learnings you had on the Sun way of building brands? Because now it's number one company in the industry today for a long time. So, what were your learnings about brand building process in Sun? I would, if you can.
So there are a lot of learnings from Sun, and if you ask me, I don't consider Sun as an organization. It's an institute.
It's an institute.
That's my 10 years of association, and it's a lovely organization to work with. It's a completely process-driven company. 100% process. People will come and go, but the process is so strong, the things will run.
Right.
And the beauty of of Sun Pharma is that organization brings you lot of newness to bring. If anything you bring new, it's been rewarded.
Right.
And I can't forget in 2002, I can't forget those days that we used that time though ORG used to be there, ORG IMS. So that big book used to come
The
and
blue
used
book.
to
Yes, the blue and the gray book.
So seeing that Sun Pharma used to be second page.
Yes.
So I remember me and Dilip bhai telling, बहुत कठिन होता है ना दूसरे पेज में फर्स्ट पेज में लाने की कोशिश करो सोचो हम अभी भी सर क्या how it's difficult that all multinational numbers 1 2 3 4 5 6 how do we can think them from top 10 or in coming to the first page in the but yes that's the infusion that they've infused that how to make that how to make the brand big, how to make the portfolio big, how to make the division big. So for that anything new, and I cannot forget one important thing in Sun Pharma. If anybody need any product manager or any marketing head, someone bring something new. All senior level management, starting from general manager, vice president, or even Dilip Bhai also, they don't shy away to spend time with you to understand what is there in your mind, to read the mind. And they will patiently listen. And that culture is super. That culture is super. They hear you out. What is that in because they always feel that young mind, because that time we were young mind brings something new on the table, and they used to patiently hear. And if suppose there is a derailment in terms of process or in thought process, they just infuse few things in your mind and ask us to revert back, and they again give you time. Okay, I want to listen from you. And very fortunate, and very few people have seen in the industry. In a half-hour discussion, they will speak hardly 2 or 3 minutes. Next 25 minutes is yours. And that's a great thing. And the learning from is that, like Mr. Sibbal, when I see, is that, acha, problem hai? Okay. Problem ko likho. Write down the problem. What are the solutions? Probable solution in this there in your mind. It's not a ready-made prescription comes across on your table. Okay, ye kar lo. Write down those solutions. Okay, once you've written the solution, fine. Tell me of if it is solution number one, what is the advantage, what is the merit, and what is the demerit of this, and what are the consequences of that. And in the process, you actually come to the I know the solution. So the whole exercise was such beautiful been carved, and it across in Sun Pharma, which I see is that you have the solution with you, and you write it down, evaluate it, and then okay, fine, you got it, no? So when I am getting the solution of my own, that my involvement, acha, ye mera solution hai. I ensure that it will become successful. And that's a beauty. You will find the marketing team of Sun Pharma always a successful. Because it's not that has been asked to do that. It is willingly which comes across. And through the situation they brings into the on the table. So that is the beauty I find with Sun Pharma in terms of making the people, and job clarity is very clear. If in a team, it's very clear. I want only one marketing manager in the team. I do not want a national sales manager or a sales manager to give me gyan about what marketing has to do. Once the marketing manager has defined, your job is to ensure that you implement it 100%.
Right.
No dilution.
So they had a clear demarcation between.
Very clear demarcation. So anybody tries to, if I remember some of the senior people try to give some advices, and which they do not into that role. Answer is very simple. I don't want consultant. His answer was, I don't want consultant. I want people to execute.
Right.
So right. There where he was very well in bull's eyes. He doesn't shy away to tell that this is my expectation from you. Right. I do not want to do jack of all trades, but I want, if you're an operational guy, be in operation. If you're a marketing guy, be in marketing. If your job is you're a finance guy, be in finance. I do not want to marketing guy to manage the finance. Right. You build up your strength. So that's a complete different dynamics what we see in the rest of the pharma industry compared to Sun Pharma.
Right. Okay.
So, and if you ask me today, the beauty of Sun Pharma was, if you see broadly the strategy of Sun Pharma was more about same like what Torrent it is. The only thing, the execution level is far better of. And that's where we were being told, and we've been asked and monitored and been asked to review the people, the monitoring process. And that's where we were strictly followed.
Right. So a lot of emphasis was placed on execution and implementation. Yes. For the outcomes which were set in the first.
Yes. Once the strategy has been defined and once it has been told, right, then there is no looking back. Every small big person has to ensure that bit is done. अगर उस डॉक्टर को 22 तारीख को मिलना है, मतलब मिलना है, provided he has not expired. Such a clarity was there in terms of अगर बॉम्बे में इस पैच में इस थेरेपी में इस मेडिकल रेप को काम करना है ये 10 डॉक्टर्स का पैच बना हुआ है मतलब बना हुआ है he has to every Monday he will meet this set of doctors only.
Right.
You cannot change the path.
Right.
So if somebody wants to work, any RPM or any area manager or a national sales manager can go and follow that patch, he can work with him.
Right.
So that discipline is there in the Sun Pharma, and that's why we see implementation strategic implementation is highest. That's what my understanding is highest in Sun Pharma.
In Sun Pharma.
That's why if you will not find that there is any water friction, that means there is nothing like what do we English you call water friction means that those big trees which are there.
Yeah.
Those big trees are not there. You will find more number of coconut trees.
Coconut trees, right.
Multiple brands, small, multiple brands is there.
Multiple. Right.
So you're not dependent on one single big brand.
Single big brand. Yeah.
Sun Pharma has never built a big brand.
Never, yeah. But they have multiple big brands of.
So they prepared many coconut trees, right. But they have not people ka ped nahi banaya humne.
Yes, yes. No, that's interesting. So to just to put things in perspective, some of the key factors that you mentioned were, one is the level of empowerment given to exercise your mandate was very good in a progressive organization. So the culture was progressive, as you indicated. The second point is they never gave you solutions. They encourage you to come up and think through the solutions, which you own it and obviously run with it with you and the team so that your accountability is far higher. The third thing that you clearly mentioned is there is clear role definition and clarity in terms of sales, marketing, and there is no confusion whatsoever. And fourth is they place a tremendous premium on execution and implementation to get in the market to get the desired outcome, because everything else is secondary. And right from the top to the bottom, everyone is focused on that execution piece, which is so very important. And so when you have these five traits, or what you call as a part of a DNA, I mean, what you're saying is it will lead to great brand building success at one level. And so they have multiple large size brands in their portfolio, which is a conscious way to build their business. So this is nice. So then, Sanjit, when you came into Zydus.
Before I come to that part.
Yeah, please go ahead.
One more part which we, Sun Pharma is part that the commitment level.
Commitment, okay.
If one's commitment has been done to a doctor, it is adhered, irrespective of the person is there or not.
All right.
So as a result, what happens that doctors' confidence on the organization is very high. And at the end of the day, a lot of goodwill is there.
Right.
So any new product used to come, because I remember that there are products which we have launched in 4 days or 5 days or even 7 days. Right. We find the success rate was very fast. Right. So some of the basic fundamentals also, if the product is there on this date, it will be available at the CFA. By this date, it will be there at the stockist. By this date, it will be that there is number of retail outlets. When it is before the retail outlet, this number of doctors it should get launched. This number of CME has to be organized, and at the granular level, those things were worked out, and every person were party to that. Right. Starting from area manager to regional manager to zonal manager, and once that has been defined, laid down, brand managers sincerely follow those paths, monitor those, ask those, and the medical rep ensure that it happens. Area manager, it happens. And I can't forget those that we were having a budget. Suppose we have to do 120 CMEs in a month with 300 field force. We landed up doing 300, but not many of the organizations. No, good. This is an investment we are doing. Right. So I cannot forget those days when I was shifted from an ophthalmology business to a gastro business, because gastro was Zydus. Sun was not number one. That time Zydus was number one. So I was shifted because ophthalmology we became number one. And I was told, Sanjit, we were shifting you to a bigger portfolio, which manages the main division, which manages both gastro as well as ortho. Historically, we have been struggling to become number one for both gastro as well as ortho, where Zydus enjoys the number one position. So when I was shifted with a clear mandate given that how strategically we can work. Now, it's not that the Sun Pharma was not doing it. They were doing very well. Month after month, quarter after quarter, year after, they were doing a budget. But what strategic shift I bought on the table? I think fine. One, what is the brand? That time Pantocid was the brand, which was still not number one. It was number two, both in terms of prescription, SMRC, SSE mark that time, and both in ORG. The strategy was that, am I reaching the last bet? And since this was a gastro focus, we cannot reach to the, so a proper audit for the CMARC was done. We sat at length for 3 days to understand that who are the biggest prescriber for the pantoprazole and other PPIs. What should be our strategy, not for today, for tomorrow? So for one, we find that there are some top of the pyramid. They are prescribing, but they are prescribing good amount of Zydus product. The next set of doctors, where I am enjoying the number two position as a Pantocid, and third also thoda not so great. So how I can get the top one? So first thing what we did is that, and while doing the analytical part, I understood that Zydus is managing with just 100, 200 doctors, but the universe was that time was some 1,000 gastros.
Right.
Now, of that, 100 gastros were there who were reproducing every year 200 new gastros. That means every institute, head of the department, associate professor, and the professor. So that strategic bet changed. And I landed up with the strategy that whichever doctor, the moment he enters into the DM students, DM or DMB, from me, he will get a Schlesinger and Fortran, which is the Bible for gastroenterology. That's number one. Number two, any educational work that weekends, 15 days, departmental meetings, Sun Pharma should be doing that. Why? Because I saw, and there was a thought behind that. These top-end doctors, which was managed by the Zydus, these are commercial doctors, not an institute-based doctors, and these doctors today, aaj yahan, kal yahan, so OPDs are the restricted, and there was always a fight amongst that. Institute doctors, they are preparing those future doctors.
Right.
So under them there are 10 doctors. Every student has stationed at the hospital only. Everybody has an OPD more than 40, 50 patients. So I have a bigger canvas to get the prescription.
Yes.
I may not get the good number of prescription in the CMAR, in the CMAR, but in AVAX, in ORG, I will get the big numbers. Right. There where the strategy changed, and we ensure that all scientific stuff or all the institutes should be done by us. And as a result, we became the number one by 2017 by displacing Pantodac. So today you can see, and that's what happened during my tenure. You can see Pantodac is still not even 100 crores or just touching 100 crores. Pantocid is more than 700 crores. So a thoughtful execution, but I will start that it's not Sanjit. I think the entire field team rallied with it. Right. Entire field team. And how did we rally is that? So one is we did a Pantocid in a pen. Every month we made it a point that every doctor of the institute should get one pen of Pantocid. Because they have to a full day, they have to write the prescription. Right. So that was a different strategy. And in the process also, we launched good number of brands for the GI as well as for the ortho. Plus, we saw the good number of ortho prescriptions. So proper auditing of those prescriptions help us along with that. What is the co-prescription? Right. Where my brand can be fit in and what should be indication. So in the indication, if it is coming that, okay, if it's the indication is this, and in that indication I have to prescribe, then my brand should get promoted there. So that's how it helped in terms of building the brand. So big brand like Pantocid, Orsocol, Rifagat, all these big brands got established, and we regained the number one. So whole process was that one is for the myopic, another is for the long sightness. So here strategy was purely in terms of how the future also might, because these doctors who are the budding guys, and that's where we started known as GYM, Gastroenterology Young Masters Meet.
Young Masters.
So this was done by me in there, and there the whole purpose was that before the DM or DNB students appear for their final exams, third year, what are the probable questions would be there? So all the head of the department used to come at one place. We used to get all third year student at one place, and bedside to patient, the discussion used to happen. These are live patients. How do you treat? So we used to prepare them for Viva live cases, and they know their professor, their head of the department, but they do not know the other institute head of the department and what type of probable question can be there. So we help both terms. It helped the head of the department and the professor to showcase himself. Let's see, I am better professor than your teacher. Students, that fear of, okay, if when a Viva is going to be there, whether I'm able to answer that threshold break we did.
Yes. So he was more confident. Yeah.
Confident. So it was a win-win situation. And in the process, since we were the part of that engagement, indirectly our brand got promoted.
Obviously.
So this was the very good tool to get closer to the future doctor, build the future business.
Yes.
As well as ensuring that I am there for your development in science.
Yes.
You help me in commerce.
Yes. And I think, Sanchit, what you mentioned about doing this beautiful initiatives, right? Like catching them young, or whatever you said, a young doctors meeting when they're in DM, DNB, sponsoring their textbooks or courses, helping them out to overcome the fear of Viva Voce in their final semester presenting. These are some of the classic stuff of super specialty,
yes,
because in the basic pivot or a model, even today, what you head the businesses is very deep engagements or relationships with customers, right? Which helps drive the business, obviously, because it rubs off on the business. So this helped to really build the franchise remarkably well over the decade that you did. Was there anything else? Yes, you have talked Salesforce engagement, you've talked about clear discipline, you've talked about catching hold of the young, then analyzing it strategically in terms of, these 100 guys producing 200 followers, which is that diffusion of innovation, cascading, whereas your competitor was focused on a fixed set of now doctors or prescribers, and they were roaming around in that same universe, whereas you were expanding the market and building the relations, which obviously you saw the difference, 6 times difference in the business at the end of that. Brilliant. This is. I think these are some of the learnings that our marketeers or who will follow this series need to understand, that you need to really look at the fundamental lever of the business, which will get you the right outcome. No, this is great, Sanjay. Thanks. This is wonderful. Now we move to, and if we move to your Zydus stint, and obviously it's one of the most high visible areas of the organization, the biologics business, super specialty. You've been very successful, and everyone in the industry, who is into hepatology or gastroenterology knows that, whether we handle, antivirals or hep virals or, even gastro product, one of the biggest case studies that all of us in the industries even now talk about is the kind of brands that you've built, especially new chemical entity, NC, Zydus first NC, that is Saraglitazar or Lipaglyn. So much has been said, so much has been spoken about Lipaglyn, and you have been associated with the brand for so long, right? And you have seen the journey. It's had a great journey. It's had its challenges and opportunity. As fundamentally a marketeer, not just as a business head, Sanjay, how have you witnessed this Lipaglyn journey? What are all the opportunities, challenges? How did Zydus go about building the brand? you don't have to tell us the inside details, but at least from a marketeers, all the people who are watching you, what are your key messages? How did you go about building this brand? What are all the stuff that needs to be done? I think it will be great to hear from you on this, So if you could kindly tell.
So one correction, Shailesh, that the brand, the NC which is there, Saroglitazar, which was the first brand name in India as a Lipaglyn, it was not done by me.
Okay, it was not done by. Okay.
Presently, I do not handle.
Okay.
Presently, also I don't handle.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a diabetic team, and it's for
Okay.
diabetes. So
Diabetes.
it is purely managed by different team.
Different team. Okay.
It's a completely different. So I'm not the part of that. Yes, I'm aware about the journey, but I'm certainly not the part. Neither have any contribution or role in that.
You are in the NASH and NAFLD.
So yes, so I am in the different part, which is known as a Bilipsa. That's a different brand name.
The Bilipsa. Okay.
Yeah, so different brand name. So which came with subsequent far later than when the original brand came for that. So which came after 4 years, 5 years after the product was there. Okay. But yes, when this product came, the fundamental things was very clear. This was a market shaping brand because there was no existence of such disease point of view. It is known as a disorder. Still, it is considered to be that. Many of the doctors, so it is. They find that okay, fine. If I do some lifestyle modification, if I do some amount of exercise, if I do various yogas and some amount of titration in my food habits and my sleeping habits, I think I can overcome. And because it is a progressive also, it's a regressive disease also.
Okay.
NASH is such a disease. So still doctors don't consider this as a disease. It's considered disorders. But yes, our whole effort and endeavor was to consider this as it's a disease in India. And there are, since our geography is such diverse, southern part of the country is a different type of NASH is there. Eastern is known as the lean NASH. There are lean guys, but still they are NASH.
Okay.
I need to take one call. That's fine.
Sure. That's absolutely fine. I'll pause there.
Yeah. So the whole process was to when this product was given with a very clear demand mandate that we need to build up a future portfolio, and that's whether we came across, and me and my team worked across it. So the whole purpose was to understand that this is not a disorder, this is a disease. That was the one thing. So for that, a series of fundamental understanding needed to be given to the gastroenterologist first. That this is a disease, it's a comorbid disease along with various diseases. This is NAFLD and NASH is one of the disease which need to be treated totality. You cannot treat. So this learning, for that we did series of advisories, boards, and those advisories not for dining and whining. It's a purely science and science. To understand the breakthrough, understand how to manage disease, understand the patient perspective, understand the patient funnel, what type of category patient will fall into it. Because the challenge is of the disease, it is an asymptomatic disease. Correct. Diabetes is symptomatic. Correct. Blood pressure is symptomatic. Any acute disease is asymptomatic. So there's nothing visible, but still you have to treat the disease, because next 20 years or 15 years, the patient will land up in a different severe situation, which can be cirrhotic in nature. Right. So making the doctor realize, understand that the asymptomatic disease is not so, and also make the patient understand. Right. With this very scary, with a very low grade available in terms of diagnostics. The only parameter from how you can agree is your biopsy. It's a painful process. Correct. So putting everything in one bucket. One is the understanding present lifestyle modification. Right. Before the patient subject is being considered told as a patient, what are the diagnostic parameters and what is available for the globally, and how to do them bring down in Indian context. Because our food habits is completely different from the Western world. Right. It cannot be cut, copy, paste. What can be happening there, it can be done here. So it has to be tailor made, modified, and that also North is different, South is different, East is different, West is different. And in the West also, there are more different.
Right.
So all those things were needed to be understood. A series of interactions were done with the doctors, also the patients. Some of the obese patients, some of the patients who they are not obese, still they have a sedentary lifestyle. A person who goes to morning, a person who goes to gym every day, but has an hereditary challenge of diabetes,
Right.
a hereditary disease of a triglyceride. So looking into all those, we defined a communication strategy to build up what is this disorder? It is not a disorder, it's a disease. Our first thing which we tried to how do you patient land up from disorder disease and what are the diagnostic tools is needed. So that was the whole exercise we did with the doctors, patients, and the various governing meets. And then we infused our communication. That's why we told that what is the root cause of this disease? Why this? We and through our communication, we make it come so efficient that I am giving you a solution which regulates the root cause of your disease.
Right.
And that's where our molecule came on table.
Right. Okay.
So whole gambit was to build up make them to realize which is there in the present situation circumstance, but then we are not able to view it because it's an asymptomatic disease.
Awesome. Right.
And that's how we got into this market, build up, strategy was found, communication was made very, very sharp. Lot of digital engagements were done to increase the awareness of this disease. Lot of engagements were done and we have utilized all the medias, print media, radio, ear media, television media, digital media to make the awareness about this is one of the disease which is asymptomatic in nature.
Yes.
And still the process is on. I'm saying still only the work done is just 30-40%. There are long way work has to be done further on that. So as a result, what happened? It built up a case for us, and that's where we become the solution provider for which regulates the root cause of this disease.
Yes, right.
And there it's purely on science, purely on communication,
right?
Purely on interface and interaction,
right?
And the most important point, only top of the pyramid was touched. We didn't dissipate our energy because fundamentally I was very clear. First, I need to ensure that the top of the pyramid should be discussed, understood, and engaged.
Right.
If I'm able to convince them, then that will certainly spread down the line. So the whole exercise, first 2 years was on that.
First 2 years.
Wow. It took 2 years. It took 2 years to make that the top of the pyramid to understand and accept, not only accept to various discussions that this is what this is a challenge. And then subsequently other things came fall into path.
This is really interesting, Sanjit, because it's really uncommon to hear a Indian-driven top 5 promoter-driven organization to exercise restraint and patience of not asking revenue from you as the business head for 2 years, but they were patiently investing in the market to build the market for the future.
So there's a complete salute to Zydus. It's a vision of our chairman and our managing director. It's a vision of them. And I should salute that the amount of investment they are ready to invest, amount of patience to hear, and patience to understand the gravity, what the opportunity. It's not about today, because this as a phenomenal scope by 20, 30, 40, and 50, whether we will have a bundle of patients, and when we have a solution for that.
Absolutely.
So the whole credit goes. If that amount of, so I use the words of empowerment in Sun Pharma, and I think the same lies here also.
Here also. No, this is
same empowerment. Vision is very, very clear.
Vision is clear.
Right? Vision is very clear. They give you adequate space and empowerment to explore newer things for the business success. And that is only possible when your senior management has that vision and have a clarity that it has to be done.
Yes.
So that's complete 100% they do have.
Yes, that's a great enabler, because that is the first starting for everything else to follow later, right?
Yes.
But what you have summarized so nicely, Sanjit, is one, Biolipsa is a concept selling.
Yes.
There is nothing else other than science at the initial stage.
True.
Said very beautifully the second point, it's a market shaping, driven agenda that Zydus and your team undertook to shape the market, improve the understanding, and build the future. Third, drive greater awareness at the top of the patient funnel, because patients are not even aware due to the asymptomatic nature of the disease. So make them aware, escalate it also at the physician community, so that this is seen as a disease and not as a disorder, as you said. The fourth important point that you mentioned, and it is very important, is apart from increasing awareness, you are fundamentally very clear that at the top end of the pyramid, that is the thought leaders, are primed and made to completely understand what we are talking about. Then the diffusion later on becomes given, because they will then pass on and cascade that whole stuff down the line. And the fifth thing that you mentioned is a lot of time and resources were given for shaping this whole science platform, right? Because once you do, so what you're saying, Sanjit, is you do the right things right. I mean, the fundamentals should be right. You're spending time on the right things, then the outcomes will be right. If you're running after the wrong things, how much ever you do, the outcomes will not be there. I'm sure you will agree on this, right? And I think that's the kind of message that you're give to the audience. And how has it been? How has the journey been so far, Sanjit? It's been good. Have you been able to get traction now over the last 5 years?
Yeah. We are certainly able to find a good traction. We are able to find a good acceptance, and we are able to say that good phenomenal patients' feedback coming across that after taking the therapy, I am feeling far better. So there is no doubt. The molecule is super.
And as a marketing team of this, and you being the head, you are engaged in the entire step of the way, right? From diagnosis up to the treatment, hand holding the patient, the whole thing you give the 360-degree approach.
Yes. So as strategically, we have ensured that everything is, because at the end of the day, once the patient starts, when a subject starts, from subject to patient, he lands up to a pharmacotherapy. I should be the partner towards him, and I am the part of the journey, so that patients should not miss out that I'm somewhere not being holding on, hand holding has not happened, or holding has not happened for my management. So we ensure that everything has been the part of that, starting from diagnostic to education to pharmacotherapy to the management. And towards also the adherence, with an outcome. So entire part as a strategy, that's a completely 360 part of the marketing strategy we do have. And let me tell you also, in all this process in last 10 years, not a single gift I've given.
Great. That's very important.
Not even a pen, huh?
It's pure science.
Purely on science. And that the belief of and Zydus has believed it on this part, on that process, and they have betted on it. I should be thankful for that. So what you rightly told, if the right pathway is the right, and the thoughts are right, and the actions are right, I think things were on right. Zydus has supported me, and today, without the support of the organization, certainly you cannot do a breakthrough or a brand, or build a division, or build an organization. So there has been a wholehearted support. That much I can.
Great.
Touch my heart and tell.
So Sanjit, we are almost to the end of your 1 hour, and I don't want to get you delayed for your other professional commitments, but it's been wonderful to at least hear your history in terms of the initial learnings or the fundamentals of sales management processes, the understanding of the selling process you brought into and selling concept, selling process and respiratory, and that shaped your thinking when you took on to the product management marketing role. Then you saw how you took off it with a small division, growing the business 6x times in less than 5 years, doing the right things, taking the team, making the right bets, etc. And then getting into an even larger scale and even larger mandate at Zydus, where you're at the high end of the therapy spectrum with biologics, disease, that high-end stuff, where it is pure science, concept selling, market development stuff. I think it's been a phenomenal journey when we see in that whole spectrum from selling to marketing and building in strategy and the other pillars of the business. Before we sign off, Sanjit, I would love to hear your last closing messages, to our marketeers. What should they, because these are all young guys or even business heads would be watching this. What are your closing messages when, for both marketeers and business heads, when that they should really do the right things or they should, in terms of getting successful? I would love to hear.
Before I make a closing statement, I'll put one more, which I think somewhere I missed out, is that
please.
In Zydus, I may be successful in that, but if your seniors are not aligned, it won't be possible. And I should say I should say Mr. Samir Desai has been tremendous support. But he has any proposals has come across, he has wholeheartedly supported. So nevertheless, I should say that and which I see I go and conquer that his seniors like Mr. Madhav Kulkarni and Dr. Nayak, Dr. Ganesh Nayak has been always supported that any newer thing which has been discussed. So if I want to close the discussion in terms of, if I want to summarize the discussion, the point is that fundamentally, if your thought process are clear, is there, good amount of homework with the database has been done, with a good practical knowledge, which happens with the encounter and experience. Right. When these happens, you're able to strategize better. And if strategy is a strategy also becomes, means that it's also implementation also become the part of the strategy. It cannot be separate. And where the complete monitoring system, the process orientation, and the outcome is sometimes quantified happens. Right. Where your seniors are also aligned with you, they also echoes the same thing, then certainly outcome has to be positive. It cannot be nothing beyond that. So that's what has helped me in every assignments, every objective, every role which I have played till now. I've been fortunate that way, I should say, that I got those leverage supporting, which added adrenaline and momentum to build whatever the brand, portfolio, my role, or as a person in this entire journey of last 25 years. Amazing,
Sanjit. It's been really, really amazing to hear your life journey. I'm hearing it for the first time, although I've met you a couple of times in the past, but I always knew that you had this great journey. But to hear it from you has been really amazing. And it's so nice to hear from a successful business leader who still believes that there is no shortcuts to success. You have to put in that hard work, the fundamentals that give you the outcomes. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Sanjit. Really, thank you so much for all the, those nuggets of wisdom, which I was trying to carve out from all that you were saying, because that is what really is the take-home messages for our young marketing and, heads of marketing in the industry. When they view this, I'm sure they will have a lot to learn and absorb from what you have just said. But thanks so much for your time, Sanjit. Really value this interaction. And once again, it's been great having you on this interaction with us. Thank you,
Shailesh. Thank you.
And
it was nice in knowing to each other, and thanks for having a good conversation. And this conversation certainly would be beneficial for the younger future marketeers.
My pleasure, Sanjit, to have one of the really successful business leaders come on this platform and share it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great day and stay safe, Sanjit.
Thank you. Same to you also.
Good day to you. Bye-bye.